I am Reverend Casey Taylor, here to speak on the second Sunday of the month, as I do. Although, what is this, March? I will not be here in April. I'll let y'all know that right now. I am taking I want to come up with a name for this. So if anybody has any ideas of what to call this, somebody, my excellent adventure. Oh, I love that. Oh, I do. I love that. So what I am going on an excellent adventure, as Linda declared. I am starting traveling. I'm going to Chicago for my mom's birthday at the end of this month, and then I am taking a tour around the country. I'm going to be speaking at the center in Las Vegas on the first Saturday in April, and then I'll be in Falls Church, Virginia, and then I will be in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then I'm going to end out the month with a Next Gen retreat, which I didn't know I was going to go to. I literally just signed up for that yesterday. It's Unity is hosting a Next Gen retreat, and being a Centers for Spiritual Living minister, Unity and CSL Next Gen, we've been talking for a little while. The communities of the 18 to 35-ish in both the Centers for Spiritual Living and in Unity are pretty underserved, and so we've been looking for ways to collaborate and work together, and they had some extra seats open, and Unity invests some money in their young adults, and so that their retreat is $0 for food and lodging, and the opportunity presented itself where I could go, so I hit that registration button, and I'm going to be going to that. And May, I don't know what's going on, so I'm just letting Spirit lead me. This is the way that I have never done it. This month of Venus, that's the way we've never done it. And I have never just kind of upended my life and gone on an excellence adventure in the middle of the year for no actual apparent reason. The way that it started, I didn't even know I was going to tell y'all this, but apparently this is a story that needed to be shared. You may know that I've been working as an admin assistant for Home Office Centers for Spiritual Living, and that position is ending at the end of March. And my first thought, as one does when you find out that the job you will no longer have, is to reach out and find another job. And I'm still working at CSU Youth Services. I'm still on staff there. So it was very easy for me to send an email and say, I'm ready to come back on this day. I'm going to take more hours starting on this day. As I opened my email, ready to send that message, Spirit said to me, if you end work on a Friday, you don't actually need to start working again somewhere else on a Monday. You can take a little time. And of course, I'm sure I'm not the only one. The first thing that came into my mind were all of the reasons why I can't take some time off. But thankfully, Spirit rebutted all of those things immediately. It took me no time. It was like, but wait, what about? Spirit was like, this is why that's not an issue. This is why that's not an issue. And I had no reason not to go on an excellence adventure. So Spirit made the call. I don't know what it's for. I don't have any sort of grand objective out of the whole thing. Even visiting all of those other centers, that all came from Spirit. It was not my idea. I was planning the trip, and all kinds of things have been thrown in there, like the Next Gen retreat. I didn't know I was going to do that. I'm a huge Mariah Carey fan. I don't know if y'all know this about me. And Mariah Carey just happens to be in Vegas for 3 weeks in April. I still wasn't going to go. I've seen Mariah Carey many, many times. Seen Mariah Carey in Vegas many, many times. But my cousin, the one I'm going to visit in Baltimore, texted me and said, we've never been to a Mariah concert together, which we haven't, and she's going to be in Vegas. Let's go. So, all right, I gave her some dates that I thought would work with my schedule. She picked the one that she picked, and so Vegas is the first leg of the trip. And some of you may know Audra Nicole, who is a new minister, as of for 1 year, her 1 year anniversary of being a minister was just a couple days ago, and she just moved to Vegas like last month. So I'm going to hang out with Audra. I'm going to speak at that center, and just let Spirit continue to lead what I'm doing, where I'm going, but I've got those centers scheduled over the course of the month, and I'm just letting Spirit use me however I need to be used. So today's theme is up until now. been operating the same way that most people do, is going to work, living life, not taking any wild excellence adventures where I don't know what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And so, I don't know what's going on individually in your lives, but this month being an opportunity to recognize that this is the way that we've never done it is an invitation for each one of you to listen to your higher power within you that is inviting you to do something in a way that you've never done it before. And I'm going to start with an invitation. I'm going to start by inviting us to do something we've never done together as a congregation. I'm going to invite you all, especially in the back, to move up, to move into the first couple of rows, and to really shift our experience of community. This is a big space, and we don't need to be all peppered out using every single one of these individual pews, and I'm grateful that you all recognize that it is an invitation. It was not a mandate. Some of you are not moving, and I fully support your decision to recognize that an invitation is simply that you get to decide, you get to listen to your inner wisdom that says, you know what, I'm comfortable right where I am, and I'm staying here. Or you get to step out of your comfort zone, move up a little bit, lean in, and trust and know that you are being guided to the right and perfect seat to receive whatever it is that needs to be known. So our content from the Global Themes team, the Center for Spiritual Living Global Themes team, this month's content was written by our own Revlyn Nowicki. And, oh yes, Revlyn, clap for herself. You clap for her too. Because what I love about the Global Themes is when we write these a year ago, there's no way of knowing what the world is going to look like once things come in, a year later, once you start putting these things into practice. But I feel like Revlyn's divine appointment to write this month of this is the way that we've never done it, at a time when our own community is in an experience of transition, to me, feels like a perfect invitation for all of us to think about how we want to show up in this community. And to also remember that this community is our community. It is not my community. It's not Revlyn's community. It is our community. And so this month in particular is a divine invitation for us to think about how do we want to navigate this experience of church. It doesn't have to be the way that we've always done it before. It does not need to be music, meditation portion, somebody gives a talk, some more music, we pass the basket around. Like that construct is something that spiritual centers and Christian churches have been using. That model of what happens on a Sunday morning has been being used for like 100 years. Does it work for us? I don't know. Like I said, it's not my community, it's not Revlyn's community. We've been doing things the way that we have always done them. And so now is the opportunity for us to really ask ourselves, is this work for us? Is this what we like? Does the fact that we had to spring ahead and adjust for the fact that our bodies were not necessarily ready for church at 11 a.m., which I think kind of demonstrates what's happening out here right now, is this how we want to keep doing things? Now is an opportunity for us to ask ourselves those questions. Revlyn said in this week's content, it's time to acknowledge our past, good, bad, and ugly, while disentangling ourselves from it. I'm not calling the structure of a Sunday morning spiritual service good, bad, or ugly. All I'm saying is it is one example of the ways that we do church in the same ways that we've always done them. And this month is an invitation for us to think about why we do things the way we do them. Are we doing it because this is what we've always done? Are we doing it because it's always worked? Is it working? Is it still working? Is there a different way to look at it? Now is the time for us to be asking ourselves that question. Not calling it good, not calling it bad, not calling it ugly. Looking at our experience as it is and thinking, why are we doing this? I don't know. That's a question for y'all. So, Thomas Schroer, who inspired a lot of what's written in The Science of Mind, the Ernest Holmes wrote, is famous for this quote saying, "Principle is not bound by precedent." And this is something that I remind myself a lot of, because I think a lot of us, the experience of life has this consistency. Like, as I mentioned, generally many of us have jobs. Like even the way that jobs work, usually the way they work is they're 5 days a week and some 40 hours a week, and most of us work that 9 to 5 middle of the day and the weekends, and we just kind of have these grooves of what we're doing, what we're used to, and often we don't necessarily take the time to step back and think, does this work for me? Is that working for me? I was invited, I was a part of a group, a women's entrepreneur group, where one of the books was called Do Less, which I didn't quote here, I just thought of it right now. Katie something is the book. And it is just this invitation to really look at the experience of work and to recognize that we don't have to do this 40-hour work week, that you can do a lot more when you're focused, when this is the time that you're doing this, that when you're not just going through the motions, but choosing designated times to do this or that you can get a lot more done with a lot less work, and you can make more money. You can do less and make more money. And I remember when I read that book, I thought that was a ridiculous concept. I was working in Hollywood, and Hollywood is one of those places that does not teach doing less at all. It is one of these experiences of a standard work week in Hollywood is 9 to 7. It is not 9 to 5. And that's somebody who's working in an office. Set is a 12 to 16 hours. So there is no such thing as doing less. It is a round-the-clock situation. And I thought, I can't do this. I can't live this life of doing less. And today, I'm living this life where I'm recognizing that as a job ends, I have an opportunity to take a month off or more and go on, have my excellent adventure through the United States. I'm recognizing that right now, I've mentioned to y'all before, I have 4 jobs going on, which is a big reason for why I think I need some time off. So, home office, the assistant minister here, I am the co-senior minister of Spirit Uncensored, which is now officially a Centers for Spiritual Living organization. As of like 2 days ago, we finished our affiliation process, and I said I still work as a case manager at CCU Services, which is essentially just serving as the president of the Coalition to End Poverty. Oh yeah, so, and writing, I'll just mention. So I'm doing a lot of writing, and I'm saying all this to say, and to do less of it all, the fact that I've got 5 jobs, people have a tendency to look at me like, how do you get it all done? And I take a lot of time for rest and recovery. You would never think that that's something that I can do. But I take things a moment to moment at a time. When I get an inspiration, I might spend an entire Saturday writing. I don't schedule that per se, I just really let Spirit lead what I am working on when, and it generally works out. Are some people upset with me sometimes for not having things done when they thought I should have it done? Sure. But I'm just out here doing my best, living my best life, and it's working for me, and that's what's important to me. So I appreciate this concept of principle not being bound by precedent, because it reminds me that just because this is the way that it's always been, doesn't mean that has to be how it is now. I'll tell a quick story about when I became a TV exec, really was inspired by this idea of principle not being bound by precedent. At the time, the vast majority of my experience in the entertainment industry had been in unscripted, in reality TV. Personally, reality TV is not for me. And so the fact that I was having such a hard time making the jump from unscripted to scripted television was just incredibly difficult. It is the reason I am a minister today. It's because I was taking all of these classes trying to figure out how can I make the shift from unscripted television to scripted. And years into working in the television industry, I was just feeling fatigued, tired of it. I had just graduated ministerial school, and I was just kind of like, whatever, I'm ready to be done with all of this and move on with my life. And I had a call with a friend, and she said, well, what do you want? And I said, she she's not just a friend, she's a practitioner. She said, what do you want? And I said, I want to be an executive, but I don't have any experience, I have so little experience in scripted television. No one's going to just give me an executive job like in a year. I want an executive job in a year, but I'm not qualified for that. And she said, well, you know what? Principle is not bound by precedent. Let's pray and trust and know that you will have that executive job within a year. And lo and behold, within a year, I was working as an executive at Viola Davis's production company in scripted and in scripted television, but mostly in scripted where I wanted to be doing what I wanted to be doing. Ellen Glasgow wrote, the only difference between a rut and a grave are the dimensions. That's right, I'm pulling out this quote. I've never heard of Ellen Glasgow, but you know, that idea of what I was talking about with getting into the grooves, we develop ruts because if you're staying in the same lane, going back and forth, eventually you create a rut. And it gets tiring. We get tired of living that same idea, doing the same things the way that we have always done them, and not recognizing that principle is not bound by precedent, not recognizing that we don't have to go back and forth in the same area, going through the same motions, working at the same job, doing the same thing every single Sunday. That we are being invited to step out of any kind of feeling of rut that we may be experiencing, anything that looks like normal, that may not be working for us anymore, step out of it and do something different. Redwood also reminds us that our ego works overtime, cataloging and categorizing our world for us, building habits of thought and action-reaction that continue to run subconsciously until we choose to investigate them. I've mentioned a book here several times, which I'm going to bring up as the last book, but we're not there yet. I mentioned a book several times called The Four Pivots by Dr. Sean Ginwright, which has kind of been the book of the year. And the first pivot in the Four Pivots is called Lens to Mirror, and it's really just this concept of recognizing that our ego is working overtime to put things and people into boxes, and we are living in the action and reaction to what's happening around us. That Lens to Mirror chapter is an invitation to step out of that, to have a different perspective around that we are living life, the ways that we are responding to the experience in our lives, and to investigate those things. Yesterday, maybe it wasn't yesterday, a couple days ago, recently, sometime this week, maybe it was yesterday. It was, because, I don't know. Last week, Saturday Live, I didn't watch it on Saturday, that's why I was trying to figure it out. I missed it. Last Saturday, you saw Saturday Night Live last night. The opening scene was it was a joke about Joe Biden. Like that, Saturday Night Live does this opening thing, and it's usually like about the president. It's either about Joe Biden or Trump, usually the first opening sketch on SNL. And it included Karine Jean-Pierre, who is the press secretary. And I had no idea that we had a lesbian black woman press secretary until I watched this sketch on SNL. Well, first I didn't know who she was, so I Googled her, and that's when I found out that she was a lesbian press secretary. And then somebody mentioned her book, so I got her book from the library, and I've been listening to it. And in the opening paragraph of her book, she mentions being married to somebody who I represented as a client back in 2008. So I was just kind of like, wait a minute, like how did I not know, how have I never heard of this woman before this SNL sketch just made fun of her? And it really opened up my lens to thinking about how I've been looking at my own relationship to the categories of thought, action, reaction. So for me, in 2020, when there was a pandemic going on and we were having some serious conversations about race, I stopped watching the news altogether. I was like, this is too much, can't do it. We're talking about the same things over and over and over again, and none of it feels like it's advancing me in any way. I'm not feeling inspired. I'm not feeling like this education is serving me in any kind of way. Most of what I feel like I'm seeing right now are people arguing and pointing blame, and this is not moving me forward in any way. I never signed up for TV in Oklahoma. I've basically just been watching streaming platforms for the last 3 years, and I got an antenna, so every once in a while I'll catch Oklahoma news, but lo and behold, they don't ever mention the press secretary. And, it's just the kinds of things that I felt like I get from local television just wasn't really teaching me anything valuable. So I stopped paying attention. But this experience demonstrated to me that there are some steps I can be taking to educate myself that are platforms and publications that I resonate with, that I identify with. I haven't found them, but I can at least look for them, because I haven't. I just kind of turn everything off. C-SPAN is the thing that I always advocate for, because it's the place where there's nobody arguing about anything. It's just a meeting. People come together and they have a meeting. It's watching Congress and legislators do their job, as opposed to somebody else telling me what happened. And it's always been interesting for me when I watch C-SPAN and then see someone tell a story about that meeting, and it's a very different experience, because the way that I perceive a meeting is not going to be the same way that you do. And so just because this person has this mark of journalism doesn't mean that they're going to talk about the things that I find interesting about what happened at that meeting. So what makes the most sense, even though it's far more cumbersome to spend the whole hour watching the thing than watch the 6-second preview, but when the majority of our news are 6-second previews of what happened over the course of an hour, we just have such limited perspectives of what's going on. So my invitation, my shift has been to start engaging in information in a different way than I have over the course of the last 4 years. Revlin also said, the most creative individuals in every field have not only been willing to think outside the box, but have celebrated every mistake, setback, and dead end along their journeys. Right now, while we are in this experience of transition, there might be some setbacks. There might be some things that are considered mistakes or dead ends. But in reality, this community has committed to being in community with one another. We recognize that our community is not defined by a building, that it is not defined by a location, and that we get to see this experience as an invitation to do things differently. And when I say we, I don't mean me, I don't mean Revlin, I mean literally all of us have an opportunity to look at what it means to be in spiritual community together, think creatively outside of the box, and know that whatever is feeling true and right and inspirational within your heart, I'm inviting you to speak up. We have these designated times for you to have a conversation with council members outside of service. You get everyone's information is available on the website. You can reach out to somebody and share what you're thinking, how you're feeling, what ideas you have around how this community could look in a way that is inclusive, contemporary, and addresses our needs individually, not what somebody else decided what a spiritual center should look like or a spiritual service should look like long before any of us set foot in this building. We have that opportunity to listen to our own inner guidance, our own inner wisdom, to think outside of the box and co-create a community that works for everyone here. So I'm going to close with Sean Ginwright's that quote that I did not put up here. I literally just did this while I was sitting here. But I was thinking about it. It's the third pivot, which is called pivot to possibility thinking, from problem to possibility thinking. He says a pivot to possibility means that we have to cultivate another outlook where we can see each other, even if we don't agree. We are now in a perfect opportunity to see one another, to celebrate one another, to think outside of the box of what love is, that when we put a little love in our hearts, that we recognize that love looks differently for each one of us and that we are creating space for it. So I would love for us to know this together in prayer. I invite you to take a moment to get comfortable in the new seats that you moved into, to experience that new perspective, bringing your attention and awareness to the breath. Remembering that this breath is a gift. that each one of us is divinely appointed, living in Oklahoma City or wherever we are, in this moment in time for a reason. That we are divinely appointed to share our gift, to share our talents, to share our perspective, and know that our individual perspective is divinely appointed. We are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe, having a spiritual experience. And I'm grateful that each one of us recognizes that we've shown up to participate in a spiritual community, to celebrate one another and the fact that God expresses as each one of us individually. I am grateful to trust and know that as we do things the way they have never been done, that we are listening to our inner guidance, our inner voice, our inner wisdom, allowing it to inspire us to speak out, to take action, and do something different. And I'm so grateful for the shifts that take place in this community because we have said yes to it, because we've shown up for it, because we are listening to our divine guidance and wisdom, trusting it to lead us, and speaking our truth. And I'm so grateful for the shift that takes place in our communities and with us individually because we have said yes to this experience. And in gratitude, I invite us all to affirm this truth together by saying, and
so it is.